Well, in October of 2023, the attorneys general of Missouri and Louisiana, along with 5 plaintiffs, asked the United States Supreme Court to uphold an injunction prohibiting the Biden administration from colluding with big tech companies to stifle free speech on social media platforms by calling it misinformation. Here's a little of what Justice Alito had to say. Here he is.
Exchange between the White House and other federal officials and Facebook in particular, but also some of the other platforms. And I see that the White House and federal officials are repeatedly saying that Facebook and the federal government should be partners. We're on the same team. Officials are demanding answers. I want an answer. I want it right away. When they're unhappy, they curse them out. There are regular meetings. There is constant pestering of Facebook and some of the other platforms, and they want to have regular meetings. And they suggest, they suggest rules that should be applied, and why don't you tell us everything that you're going to do so we can help you and we can look it over. And I thought, wow, I cannot imagine federal officials taking that approach to the print media.
All right, now the pundits seem to be forecasting the Supreme Court will reject the effort to limit government contact with social media companies. I don't know how they read the tea leaves, but joining me now to discuss this is the Senior Research Associate at the Heritage Foundation, Daniel Cochran. Daniel, thank you for being here.
It's great to be with you.
All right, looking into the crystal ball, the most dangerous thing a man in your position can do when it comes to predicting what happens in a courtroom or what they're going to do. Any feeling at this for this at all? I mean, what I'm reading is that the pundits, the majority of them, think that the Supreme Court is going to allow government to continue to go in the back door and say, well, that's misinformation, disinformation, and whatever and whatnot. I would hope that's not the case, but they said the danger of going the other way is too significant. How do you read it?
You know, that's always a dangerous thing, as you've noted. But I think what's really concerning to me is that the court seems to have a very difficult time distinguishing between persuasion and coercion in this case. And one of the challenges is that a lot of these companies and government entities have been working hand in glove for a very long time. And because of the nature of the entanglement between big tech and big government, when the court is applying decades-old tests to determine if coercion occurred, it becomes a really challenging feat. And so for that reason, unfortunately, I'm more skeptical than optimistic, but we urge the court to restrain the government's role in this because it really, as you say, infringes on Americans' fundamental freedom to express their views on matters of public concern.
Yeah, because to me, it's cut and dried. If the government comes in the back door of what used to be Twitter and now X and says, no, take this down, or even more egregious, didn't even ask permission or talk to the gatekeepers, just went in delete, which is what we understand went on. I mean, that's the biggest scandal in American history. If you have government agents working for one side and not the other, dictating what will be seen on Facebook or X or Instagram, that's very dangerous. I mean, that is censorship, and that is exactly what the First Amendment was written to protect us against. You see, it's there to protect us from the government, isn't it?
Well, it's designed to protect us from the government, but unfortunately, what the government's discovered is that they can rely on these private entities to do what they aren't constitutionally barred from doing. And unfortunately, in our current context, where so much of the modern public square is run by private intermediaries like Facebook and Twitter, now X, these private companies get to decide fundamentally what speech we're allowed to exercise. And so one of the key points and takeaways from today's case is that you got to attack censorship from both the government angle, but you've also got to hit it from the private angle. Private actors should not have the power to unilaterally decide what speech is orthodox in America.
Well, when did Democrats leave the idea of, I used to see these shirts when I was going, question authority, resist, and all this sort of, to government is God, never question government. If government says that it is the truth, I mean, I'm sorry, where did this happen? When did government start telling the truth? Any government, for that matter. Look, governments lie a lot, ours included. and they manipulate a lot, ours included. When did Democrats lose track of that fact?
Well, it's disappointing because the reality is that censorship comes for you no matter what side of the political aisle you're on. I mean, if you look at the 60s, protests around Vietnam, the government was using surveillance and censorship to silence dissent then. We've seen this in more recent years of people on both the political left and right that have objected to some of the more radical gender ideology, right, transgender identity, and even people on both sides of the political spectrum that have spoken out about the dangers of COVID lockdowns. A lot of Democrats, including Robert F. Kennedy Jr., they have been censored. And that's the reality, is that no matter what side you're on, if you have concentrated power, you have the concentrated power to censor people, that power is going to be used against you eventually. And so that's why we need to break up these companies. We need to limit their power.
That's what they don't seem to understand. Those that are left of center seem to miss the concept, very clear concept that has been demonstrated time and again through millennia, that as soon as they run out of people to target, they're coming for you because their power will be unrestrained at that point, right?
That's absolutely right. Whenever you have concentrated power, it's a threat to liberty, and it's a threat to liberty on both sides of the political spectrum. It's not just about Republicans or Democrats. It's about the American constitutional right to speak freely in the public square. And as I said, now that so much of that speech is conveyed over private platforms, those platforms have an obligation to respect that speech and respect our right as Americans to engage.
I completely agree with that. We'll see what the Supreme Court decides. I guess we won't know until June. Daniel Cochran, greatly appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.